as predicted, I start walking and the sun comes out from behind a cloud. Oh, there's a cloud headed. Where's it headed? Go over the sun. Go over the sun. I want to invite you to use me in a particular way, and that is to learn English, to improve your English. And I'm going to describe my English to you and why I might be useful for that. All relationships in a way are transactional. So you giving me your attention and time is me serving you in some way. In this particular case, you could actually use me to improve your English. And I'm on an app sometimes, very rarely, called Clubhouse, which is a shit show of people. I mean, all kinds of people. And there's channels on it where everybody just interrupts each other and it's just a total wasteland. And then there's other channels where some controlling person controls the conversation, usually making the conversation better, actually, because they're giving people turns to talk, and sometimes the controlling person just seems like an asshole, but that's how it goes. And I might make another channel that's actually with other people on it, so that it's conversational with other people, which would be also a great way to improve your English. The reason I mention the app is because a lot of people on there have English as their second language. And some of them even named their channel English Speaking, and you join it, and there are no native English speakers on the channel, which is still fine. I enjoy it because I like, asking people where they're from and find out where they're from. And I'm an unusual person, so I try and join in their conversation whatever way is interesting, and it often starts out about like where you're from and all this stuff. But one thing you could get out of my channel, this one, whatever you're seeing this on, is that I have a lot of topics I talk about, and I'll tell you a little bit about the way I speak English, because as a non-native English speaker you may not be able to evaluate my English. I will tell you about my English. English varies widely. It is spoken with many accents, many different types of word use. So, for example, in the United States, where I come from, the biggest English-speaking country, I believe, that has TV English as the dominant force in the West, at least, and probably with most folks. It's a big blob of English that's pretty similar. Now, a different type of English would be, for example, from England, where English developed out of other languages. English is a very confusing, messed up language. It's made from roots in Greek, German, Latin. Is there another one? I mean, there's old stuff I don't know about. Okay, I'm not an expert on the language, but I'm a really good speaker of it. And I appreciate the mess that English is. I really am sad for anyone who has to learn it, because grammatically speaking, its rules are all over the place. It's not phonetic, meaning you can't read it and know how to pronounce it, which is kind of a bummer for anyone trying to learn it. So I'm very sympathetic with someone trying to learn it. And of course, the best way to learn it is by listening and then also speaking it. And I give you my permission, not that you need it, and not that anyone's in charge of English at all. I mean, it's not French, right? There is no fucking official English. It's a big mess. So you have my permission to fuck it up. You can make mistakes. Don't feel bad about your bad English. Don't apologize for it. I mean, of course, I apologize when I speak in another language because, I'm aware that I'm a dumbass in the other language. That's how it is. It's okay. And the people in the other language I speak, there's only one of them, they're very forgiving because they're from generally nice cultures who are not really uptight about it. Of course, I've been criticized for my use one time by one prick, overeducated rich motherfucker. There are some things about my English I gotta warn you about, is I curse. I say things like motherfucker. You should never say that word. It's a very bad word. Although I have fucked mothers and it's been wonderful. That's a joke. Because motherfucker is used as an insult and it does not directly mean anything about fucking mothers. So, We could talk about the edges of language, and cursing is certainly an interesting option, and people do love to learn curse words in another language. I don't use curse words in my second language because I don't want to misuse them. I don't want to offend anyone, So probably in English you shouldn't curse a lot, although go for it. I mean, I'll find it funny, but just be aware you could offend someone. So that's a warning. If you're going to learn in English from me, you might learn a few things that you shouldn't say. The benefits of learning English from me is that my accent is generally very normal. It's the most standard English. It's TV English is what I call it. I don't think that's an official term. There used to be one, which was Midwestern Standard or something, and it was the way they talked on television like in the 50s or something. And television caused English to become normalized and not have as many variations. Because if you look at a place like the UK, United Kingdom, England, Scotland, Ireland, British Isles, I don't know, that gets a little confusing what's included in which of the various blobs of Britain, British Isles, UK, all that. There's like diagrams of like what the correct terms are. Don't worry about it, doesn't matter. The point is, I meet people from there, and they have a lot of very distinct accents. And those accents indicate your class, your economic status, your geographic origin within a very small area. I mean, English comes from a very small area and then spread. Now, I'm assuming this is true, and other people have validated that language where they're from also varies widely. India, for example, has like 33 different languages or something, probably of which there's like 5 or 6 that are, more important. Hindi, Punjabi, Bengali, stuff like that. I don't know. I'm not an expert on India. I've never been there, even though I find it a fascinating country. And I'm assuming that in a big place like China, that there's a lot of different languages and language variants that exist. There's people, China's hugely diverse. But we try and ignore that because they also had a highly centralized government with a lot of people in it. And they imposed, at some point, Mandarin Chinese. Don't believe anything I'm saying. It might not be right. But it seems like they had a centralized system that was it had the power to enforce some standardization of language. So, but I don't know. I don't speak any Chinese. I barely know any words in it. I speak more Japanese than I do Chinese. I have at least a couple of funny things I can say in Japanese, and I know some words, but beyond that, I don't speak Japanese. I can say, Watashi wa hena gaijin. Watashi wa hena gaijin. Watashi wa is something like I. Hena, I think, is something like funny, and gaijin is foreigner. So it means I am a funny foreigner, which is funny in itself because it's redundant, because all foreigners are funny because they're foreign. I think that's a funny joke. I don't know. I used to say that in college, and Japanese people would laugh at me, and I was amused. I do have great empathy for people learning English. Early on in my college career, my university career, I taught ESL students, English as a second language students, from various places in the world. I taught them how to use computers. And this was a long time ago. So most of these people, these students, did not speak very good English. And it was actually a really fun job because I got to see the differences in how they learned English. And a couple of things I'll tell you about. Let me just... Sorry, I get confused on topics a lot. But the way I speak is very in the vernacular. It's very natural. So I'm speaking to you just like a person who's sitting here. Where's my better lighting? Over there. Yeah, better lighting for you. I speak like you're a person I'm just walking around with. I'm using you as a person because I'm a lonely person living out in the woods. And I don't know who I'm speaking to. I'm speaking to a little plastic camera box thing, but who knows who's on the other side of it. But I guess I would encourage you to fuck. Don't say fuck. It's a bad word. You can say fuck. It's fine. It's a great word. One of the best words in English. And it can mean almost anything. You can fucking use it however you fucking like. Anyway, so I will tell you some stereotypes I have about the people who were learning English that I was teaching computer stuff to back when computers, like, didn't even have Windows. Right? So it was a while back. And I taught primary groups I can remember. There was, I'm sure, some other people mixed in. So now my lighting changed again. Was people from the Middle East whose original language was Arabic, and possibly some other languages from regions I don't know about. And what I found was, well, let's go with the list here. So people from Middle East, people from Asia, which was mostly Japan, because Japan was doing economically really well. This was back in the 80s, 1980s, different fucking century. I'm old fucker now. And so, fuck, gotta walk home up this hill again. I feel like I'm always walking up a hill. I feel like that's what my life is, walking up a goddamn hill. Anyway, so you got Middle Eastern, Japanese, and then Latin American, right? And who am I missing? There wasn't a ton of people from India, which was annoying because there's a lot of people in India. But at the university I was at, which was a big university that attracted a lot of foreign students, and it did get a lot of Asian students in particular, because it's on the Pacific Rim. It's a good place to go to. I recommend it highly. I don't feel like telling you where it is, but a really nice school. Lots of students, and I always really enjoyed getting to know foreign students. I invited them to parties at my house. You know, I knew a lot of kind of people. Anyway, let's just go with those three groups, and we'll just reduce the Asians all to Japanese, although there were some others mixed in. But it was mostly Japanese because Japan was doing very economically well at the time and sending a lot of students around to learn English. My stereotype was this. The Middle Eastern people could speak really well. And they sucked at written language. Hola. Yeah, hay muchos así. Yeah, especialmente aquí hay muchos. Yeah. Bueno, nos vemos.
Muy bien. ¿Cómo estás?
Oh, muy bien.
Bueno, excelente.
And apparently the sounds that get made in Arabic, and I don't know anything about this, but apparently the sounds you make with your mouth in Arabic are easy to make in English. That's what I was told. I don't even know if it's true. But, God damn it. It's like no real trail here. I don't know why I bother walking through here. At least if I walk through here, I should pick the same place to walk, and then there would be a trail. Anyway, they did really well with that, but their written language would suck. And of course, Arabic script, the Arabic letters, are unrelated to the Roman letters used in English. By the way, the numbers are Arabic, apparently, in English, which is funny because you can ask somebody, you can like survey any bigoted Americans, and you can say, do you think that, school children should learn Arabic numerals, Arabic numbers? And some bigots will say, no, they shouldn't. And it's like, well, that's where the numbers came from. There's a lot of crossover between cultures of all kinds, and English is a language that has sucked up other sets of things. It's been very open, and it even got created that way. And if you study the history of English, like I had a teacher in high school, and he played us what was believed to be an approximation of either Old English or Middle English, and it was unintelligible. And I have a book. I have Thomas More's Utopia, written as it was originally spelled. It's a good book. Thomas More. I think it's More, M-O-R-E. There's not 2 O's in there. So it's spelled a particular way. You poor people trying to learn English, everything's just misspelled. That's how it is. Just fucking give up and accept it. Anyway, so the Arabs could speak really well. They were really just, super good. Couldn't write worse shit. And then my stereotype. This is all just stereotypes based on experience, okay? Don't judge these groups of people based on anything I say. The problem with the Japanese people in general was that they were afraid to make mistakes. And their written English was very good. They had been taught written English in classes in Japan, and so they could do that. But speaking, they were a little too shy. Not all of them. Some of them. I remember one guy in particular I thought was awesome. He's my favorite Japanese guy at that time because he was nuts. He was great. His name was Wataru. Still is probably. I am not in contact with him, unfortunately, because he's the coolest guy I've met from Japan. I should actually ask my friend who eventually moved there. He was a guy from the States and moved there. If he kept contact with him, because Wataru was big fun. That guy was American Japanese. He wasn't from America at all, but he was born in the wrong country, I think, because he was a wild guy and very funny and outgoing, and yeah, I like that guy a lot. But anyway, and so I would encourage them to make mistakes in English, like, seriously, just fuck up the language. It's already a fucked up language anyway. Don't worry about it. Oh, the cloud went over the sun again. Fuck, that's so nice. And then the Latin Americans were an interesting case. And that one I don't have as clear a stereotype on because it was case by case. Generally, and one of my favorite guys was Luis. He was from Ecuador and had been a sailing guide in the Galapagos Islands. Now, in his case, his spoken English was quite good, and I don't really think he gave any fuck about written, so it wasn't his thing. But I don't remember. We hung out, actually. We went to parties and stuff, and he was a little bit older than other students, so he was, and he had experience with tourists, so that's how he learned to speak, which is a great way to learn English, I think, is get a job hosting like foreigners in your country, or travel, which is even better. The way to learn any language, in my opinion, is not in the classroom. It's go to a place where nobody speaks your language, and you'll really quickly learn how to say, where's the bathroom, and can I have another beer, and other basic things needed for survival. Hi, sweetie. How come you don't speak English? Why don't you speak English? Speak English. Speak English. Do it. Say, hello, I love you. Say, I love you. I love you. You're such a good boy. Yeah, I don't think his English is coming along very well. I don't have great hopes for him. I think he's retarded. By the way, don't say the word retarded ever. I say it because I'm an offensive motherfucker. But it has nothing to do with being developmentally disabled. And this little boy right here has a very good excuse for not speaking English, because he's in a special group of individuals which have been oppressed so heavily that they're afraid to speak English. Probably when I'm not there, all my dogs are just speaking English and stuff, but they don't want to do it in front of me. There's a great cartoon, by the way. Humor is really hard to get in any language, but there's a great cartoon. It's called The Far Side. The Far Side. I would recommend, if you were studying English, this is a dumb recommendation, by the way, not to insult people who don't speak, because if you say the word dumb, that used to get used as a word to refer to people who can't speak, but it's not used that way anymore. So if you call someone dumb, no one knows that they're referring to that. And so something that you could take offense at, because it's somehow insulting people who can't speak, is not used that way. So don't fall for these dumb people the people who are purposefully dumb, who want to control your language, who want to control your language use, and say, you can't say that in English. Although actually you should probably listen to them because you want people like you. And there's all sorts of shit you can say in English that uptight, stupid, dumb fucks will be offended by. Because saying the word dumb is ableist. It's a quagmire of bigotry and assholism. And if you know those people who are English speakers, cut them out of your social circle entirely. They are dumb. And they're very good at speaking. And they're very good at trying to control your speech. So annoying. I don't think that particular word, by the way, is one that they're focused on. They change their focus every few years of what's offensive and what isn't. But the main thing you have to remember is that if you meet those people, they want to control your mouth. They want to control your thoughts, and they think you're in charge of you. And just get away from them. Your average person who's an English speaker, your average good person is pro-freedom of speech. Meaning you should be able to say a lot of stuff, but don't be an asshole. Like, I don't say things to offend people, you know, but if you're going to be offended as a profession and you're going to think that gives you value as a human being, well, fuck you as a human being. You're a shitty human being. People will say ignorant, dumb shit to you if you're learning English. A few of them out there will judge you. There's assholes everywhere in the world that are bigoted against foreigners and non-whatever the fuck group, and just cut them out too. Cut out the bigots. It's perfectly fine to speak poor English and speak anyway. It's perfectly fine to speak your native language in the United States. If anyone's ever offended by that and they say something to you like, oh, this is America, speak English. Fuck those people. They're terrible Americans. They're terrible human beings. You know, anybody that says go back to your country, no matter where they are in the world, is probably an asshole. Unless you're being an asshole and you deserved it. But, like, there's a lot of people who think that they own everything around them. And they're going to tell you how to be. You don't have to fucking be that way. Fucking hell. The way I speak is often I'm out of breath because my lungs suck and I'm walking up a hill. So that is a problem, I guess. But I think I'm still very clear in my enunciation. And I speak relatively simply. I do use some strange words. Some of them I made up. And so I do use words in twisted, strange ways. Because I feel like it, because that's fun. For me. Like I just said cuz. I didn't say because. I shortened it. But that's English. It's perfectly valid. Now, if you ask an English teacher what correct English is, they will say, I don't speak correct English. But what I'll respond with is that I speak colloquial English. I speak English like English speakers speak English. For real. You know, I'm not on a news broadcast. I'm not trying to use the king's English. I mean, damn, there was a whole revolution against the king. America split away from the crown, and I don't think I have to use the king's English. And guess what? They don't use it in England either. So fuck any idea that the proper English is somehow in England English, especially since in England, people don't speak the king's English there either. I have hosted people from Scotland. And some of them I had a hard time understanding because their accent was so thick. I traveled in Honduras and Nicaragua a long time ago, and I met some people that are in a group called Mosquito Indians. Mosquito is actually a bug, so I don't know what that has to do with the Indians. Somebody fucked up the naming of that, but it's not the first time a group of people got misnamed. In fact, it's fairly common to misname groups. Anyway, we had to speak in not English because their English was so different than mine that we couldn't understand each other. And it was pretty funny. That was a long time ago. And probably now with the internet, everybody has access to listening and hearing people from other places speaking colloquially. So that's actually good. Colloquial, in case you didn't know, and probably most English speakers don't even know the word colloquial. It means just like common, normal, what the people actually use as opposed to what the English teachers think you should. I mean, there's all kinds of things English teachers will say, you have to do it this way, you have to do it this way. And it's like, they're correct. And I actually follow the AP style book. The AP style book is the Associated Press style book. When I'm writing, I mostly follow those rules. So my written English is far different than my spoken English, although some English speakers have complimented me that I mostly write the way I speak. I consider a compliment. Maybe they meant it as an insult. I don't know. But I don't say cuz when I'm writing. I say because. And I don't do leet speak. Leet speak is L-E-E-T, capitalized, I think. And I think it's become less popular. I don't see it as much. But there was a whole wave of people online who were writing things massively abbreviated in weird ways. And that's something that would be easy to criticize. I could criticize leet speak, and it certainly makes it harder for you as a person learning English if people are abbreviating the fuck out of shit and, like okay becomes K, although okay has also been abbreviated from okay spelled out. And I forget the etymology. Etymology is it's a term to refer to where a word came from, how it developed. And the etymology of everything is super interesting. You don't have to learn about the etymology of every word to understand it. But with something as far out as leet speak, where I don't even want to read it and I can't write it, and briefly I thought that's bad. I was younger, and I thought that's bad. That's not following the AP style book. It's not the right way to write English. But, these people are texting and they're trying to save time and pixels on communicating in a more rapid way. And so I stopped being critical of it because language evolves. There's whole subsets of language, like in English and I'm sure other languages, like that got created by criminal groups as slang. It's a slang language. And some of the interesting ones of those do come out of England. But this is true everywhere, where, less so I think because of mass media, and less so now because of the internet. So it's like language is consolidating and diversifying. And you can talk to a linguist about that, somebody who studies language, whether it's good, bad, whether it's happening or not, in which ways. But it's kind of like, you might as well just accept that there's a diverse way of communicating. Like you look at, Gen whatever, slang, and it's like people will be confused by it. Most of those people are trying to establish their individualism by using words in different ways than are common. And you could be critical of that, and I can certainly say, I don't know what the fuck you're talking about. Or I could learn the slang for fun, and I could even learn it and then try and use it in a video. That'd be hilarious, and I would probably sound funny. But don't worry about, the language of youth. I think, and you'll have to tell me if this happens in other countries, like whether young people in your country use language in weird ways, and I'm assuming the motivation is to kind of be special, right? To have their in-group, to rebel against the common language of those old motherfuckers who control everything, and you can break away and be a language rebel. I'm all for it, go for it, but most of them will settle down into the common language and be able to understand each other and get over their childish attempts at individuality within their group, because they have to be like everybody else in their group to be an individual. It's normal. Everybody tries to be special. Whatever. So do I have any other advice for someone using my channel as a way to learn English? I warned you about cursing. You shouldn't do that probably very much. or at least do it right. Don't be mean in any case. I mean, a lot of curse words can be used in a mean way. Don't do that. That's true in any language. Don't be an asshole. My accent then is fine. It's very colloquial. I think if you were going to learn proper English for a business setting, that you probably shouldn't learn it from me. Or maybe you should. Because maybe business is conducted among people who are not always speaking in a formal way. Maybe they need to actually connect. And maybe a way to connect is by speaking like the person you're trying to connect with. Which is a little funny. Even like Japanese students back in the 80s, some of them were being taught the word keen. You're like, that's keen. K-E-E-N. That's keen. Like it's cool. Except this is like a 50s word and nobody uses it ever. Nobody ever in English says, that's really keen. Or maybe they do in England. I don't know. In England, they call people cunts all the time. Well, don't do that in America. Cunt is a very bad word in America, and I also don't understand that, since cunt is kind of like a good thing. Like, everybody likes cunt. Why is that a bad word? I don't know. English is very confusing. I have thought about running language learning programs here, and I actually have a tiniest bit. I was going to try and set that up. I probably will try and set up businesses instead. There's a couple ways that I could include language learning in what I have here. One of them is software localization, to attract geeks that speak a variety of languages, so that we could take a program that's in one language and then change it, translate it into another language. And that would require somebody with good skills in both languages and being kind of geeky. Understanding how technology terms might be different, and understanding that you have to use terms that are going to cause that UI, user interface, to be usable by a variety of kinds of people. So that would be really fun. Also, it would be fun to make channels in other languages, because I want to invite other people here to do cool off-grid permaculture stuff. And if we're going to do those things, we might as well do them in another language that would be easy to do it in. And then I could pick a couple other languages that we would have a channel in. One of them would surprisingly be Hindi, because there's a lot of Hindi speakers that don't speak English, although a bunch of them do. But actually a bunch of them do, and that'd be a reason to do it. Because they could then reach a huge audience of Indians, because they would be bilingual. So there's a lot of bilingual Hindi-English speakers. Because I need to be able to communicate with these people too, because I'm not going to learn Hindi. Even though it sounds cool, like if I could just be like, oh, I learned Hindi, magic. That'd be great. I think it'd be fun. You know, I like the way it's written. I can't read it at all. And I like how it sounds. It sounds cool. You know, I watch some Bollywood movies, but I'm just not going to learn it. It's not going to happen. Chinese, obviously, there's a lot of people in China. So that would be another interesting group to make a Chinese channel. And especially with some of my views that are very freedom-oriented, it would be interesting to spread those within that culture, although that could be a way that would make me a lot of enemies, because like even in China, they don't study Chinese history in some cases. So, yeah, and then Japanese would be no problem. Like, I would love to have Japanese people here. I like Japanese. I think the culture is cool. Various weird things about it. It's different. I knew a lot of Japanese people in the past, and I've had a few Japanese visitors. Not very many. I've only had one visitor from India. That sucks. Other big language groups, most of Europe, I feel like, speaks English. And that's false. There's a bunch of people who don't. But younger people tend to learn English, at least the ones that meet me. And they also travel a lot. because they're wealthy. If you look at a wealth map of the world, right? We could do that. We could decide, oh, well, that's where the advertising money is. That's where the audience that has money is. Maybe that's a factor we would consider in what channels to start. Arabic would be an interesting choice. I don't know a lot about it. I mean, what I know about the world is actually very extensive by comparison to a normal person. But there's parts of the world I know more about and less about. And I would actually have to measure. Like my geography is pretty good, but knowing geography doesn't mean you know shit about the culture, right? And then African languages, there's only one country in Africa that I know of where English is the, I think, official language or very predominant. It's Equatorial Guinea, which is not the same as Equatorial New Guinea, which is kind of confusing. But anyway, it's this tiny ass country in Africa. And I've been interested in it because they speak English there. Oh, sorry, I think they speak Spanish there. It's Spanish, I'm sorry. But anyway, that got my interest as well. And then, of course, I think South Africa speaks a fair amount of English. Maybe that's the biggest language. I don't even know. And then the point is I don't give a fuck. I mean, and I don't have to make these things pure languages on a channel. We could have channels that were a mix of language. But in general, we should probably standardize on a language on a channel. Maybe. I don't know if that's true, but it seems like it would make sense. I mean, there could be an Italian channel. There could be a German channel. I don't care. But you can only have so many channels, too. And each channel has a cost related to it. So it's partly a marketing decision, I suppose. How can you reach the biggest audience and why you would do that? I don't know. But Arabic would cover a bunch of people. And there's actually images out there of blobs of languages and how big they are in the world. And English is really big. Chinese is really big. I think Hindi is really big. And so just as a pragmatic matter, it seems like you would want to hit the biggest blobs, And then hopefully everybody speaks English. And I just say that because I have to speak with these people. But they could also speak some other languages and that'd be fine. And Spanish is a really good language because it covers a lot of the Americas. And a lot of people who are Spanish speakers do not speak another language, or they don't speak English. They might speak a native language, which would be really cool. But I don't want to make a channel for, 60,000 people who are native speakers of a language. It just doesn't make sense. So I think English and Spanish would cover a lot of the world, geographically speaking. And then you can think of languages like Russian. That'd be cool, I guess. I don't speak any Russian. I don't know how many Russians there are. They got a lot of land. But, I'd be measuring this based on the number of speakers, not on how much land they got. I think that's it. Anyway, feel free to use me for learning English, for practicing your English. This is a one-way conversation, so that's not real great. I do intend to start another channel, which is going to be like a podcast. And it'll be in English. And it'll have 4 speakers at the same time. And we'll have really interesting topics. And that would allow you to listen to a conversation among people, which is a more valid way to learn English. Right now you're just listening. This is all one-way communication, which is maybe useful to you, but it might be more useful to you to listen to people speak with each other. And in fact, on that same channel, I could have people on there who have English as a second language. And we could even have as topics talking about language, talking about cultural issues, because I love talking with foreigners of all kinds. And so that actually might be more educational. But one other thing is I talk about almost all topics like I can think of. I could talk about my toes right now and cutting my toenails because they're too long and they hurt my feet. And I have been wearing the same socks and shoes for a long time. I haven't even looked at my toes. I'm afraid to look at my toes. But I can guarantee you that my toenails are dirty and long. So I got to chop those off because I have to walk a lot. And so with me, you'll get a lot of different topics. You get a little bit of political shit, although I would rather not focus on that too much because it seems like it just divides people needlessly. But everything is political in a sense. And I say a lot of ridiculous things. I'll tell you, up front. I say stuff like money's not real. Well, I mean something by that. Obviously, there's a thing called money that exists. But what do I mean when I say that? So that's a problem you're going to have if you're listening to me as a non-native speaker, is that I say things that are ridiculous. But that's actually good for you. And I suppose I'm not good for a novice English speaker to listen to. But for an advanced speaker, I might be useful. Because I speak in weird ways. So, and I talk about topics, economics and plants. I like to talk about plants a lot. And forests, and those are topics that should matter to everyone everywhere in the world. Like, we gotta fucking save the planet, man. We have to. Chick, whatever. Fuck. Oh, it's nice out. There's a cloud over the sun again. Oh, it's a tiny cloud. All right, I gotta walk while it's nice out. I might have to chop off all my hair, which would be also very funny because then I wouldn't look like a hippie freak. And people, of course, judge you based on how you look, which is totally dumb of them. Because, like, when I've had short hair before and a clean-shaven face, people assume I'm a different person than if I look like this. If I look like this, people offer to sell me drugs. If I have short hair and no beard, people don't offer to sell me drugs. That at least used to be true. Now nobody offers to sell me drugs because I don't ever meet anyone and I don't travel. But if I went to the beach and they saw this guy that looks like a hippie, I would get offers and I would decline them because I don't know those people. And I would prefer not to buy drugs from people I don't know because that's not smart. The other interesting thing about learning English from me is that I'm fairly culturally open. I'm open to talking about topics that are generally pretty censored. I don't tend to talk about sex a lot because people are really uptight about sex. I'm not very uptight about sex, but it's just a topic that attracts attention that I don't find useful, and some people are really uptight about it. So, like, why bother? I'll talk about sex with people I'm going to have sex with. Other than that, well, other people talk about sex. Go listen to them. If I say any words you don't know, feel free to ask me about them. You can comment on that, and we can talk about language. I've already insulted English. It's a fucked up language, but I also think it's beautiful. It's a beautiful mess of a language, and I love its complexity. Of course, I would like it if it was phonetic. And there was, I think it was the Chicago Sun-Times a long time ago, tried to publish their newspaper in phonetic English. I think this is true. My memory, this is something I learned in university, so it might be wrong. And guess what? Nobody wanted to fucking read it. Because even though it's theoretically cool to be phonetic with your language, it isn't convenient for people. And it's the same for making a universal language. Like, I don't know if you've heard of Esperanto or not, but Esperanto was designed to be this worldwide language, which does sound cool. It would be nice if we could all talk to each other, wouldn't it? Wouldn't that make life easier? Make business easier? Like, Indonesian apparently is a trade language. Indonesian is a fairly simple language because it was designed to be for trade. And I don't speak any of it, but I'm not anywhere close to Indonesia, so But all attempts at creating an artificial language have failed. There are other attempts other than Esperanto. Esperanto, I think, is based, well, it's Latin based, essentially, I think. Anyway, it hasn't made progress. I mean, all my life I've heard about Esperanto, and I would even be willing to host people here who could speak in Esperanto. I'm willing to support the effort. I think it's great. But we are not going to have a worldwide language anytime soon. It just isn't going to happen. I mean, we can barely get people to learn, like you can barely get people from the U.S. to learn Spanish. And Spanish is the obvious language to learn. Like if you are from the U.S., you should learn Spanish. Because it opens up to you a whole world of travel, just south of you. There's whole, countries and whole continent of South America, although there's also, down there's Portuguese. But Spanish is currently the second most common language in the U.S. And actually, if you look up data on this, you could look up what's the most common second language in the U.S. in any given geographic region, and it's going to be Spanish in most places. And then if you say, well, not English or Spanish, what's the next one? It's going to vary widely. And that will tell you about immigration patterns and who moved to where. It's fairly entertaining. I would actually like to see similar maps. I love maps. Similar maps for everywhere else. Like in Europe, for example, the second most common language is probably going to be English in many places. But I assume on bordering countries, the second language will be whatever's the country nearby. I mean, Switzerland has like a bunch of stuff. I think they have German, English, French, Swiss. I don't know anything about Switzerland. I've never been there. I'd love to go there, actually. I think Switzerland sounds, of all the countries. Hi, honey. Hi, good baby. Did you get ditched at home? Yeah, you did. You didn't get to go to town. You missed the boat, baby. That's a good boy. He did not get to go to town because I snuck away. I ditched him. I did not throw him in a ditch, but that's what the word kind of means, is that you... Is that where that word comes from? You throw someone in a ditch? I don't even know. I ditched him, meaning I escaped. I dumped him. I got away from him because I did not want so many dogs in town. And this has been a long day. It's been a long walk, a very successful day. I'm very happy. It's nice to meet you if you're learning English. And I hope that I invite more people here who have English not as their first language. And everybody here can be exchanging languages. And we can have cross-cultural fun. And talk about issues of everything. And not be too focused on that. Like, I don't really want to stereotype people. Like, I had one woman here who was like, because she was here and there was people from various countries, and she was like, oh, that person's from this country and therefore they're like that. And I got tired of it after a while because she just kept doing it to people of like, oh, that person's from there, therefore they're like that, and they're like that. And it's like, what are you, a child? She was really young. She was like 18 or 19. And it was just like, come on. People are not their goddamn country. They're not their goddamn culture. They're whole people. They're individuals. And people from a country are not all the same. And if you think they are, you're a bigoted fuck who should not come here. You're not invited. I mean, like a lot of Europeans constantly are stereotyping Americans, and it's like meeting people from the United States. I'm very aware it's continent, and picky people point that out, right? But it's also the only country with the word America in it. So don't be an uptight prick, you fuck, and don't come here. Anyway, I find it very offensive that Europeans, I've known Europeans for a long time, and they're the most arrogant motherfuckers in the world. Here I am insulting an entire continent of people, saying don't do that. Isn't that funny? I think it's hilarious. No, it's just the arrogant rich ones that travel a lot. The educated ones that are looking for somebody to insult because they've grown up watching a bunch of American movies and they think they know anything about Americans because of that. When Americans are a wildly diverse group of people. Like wildly diverse. Like one of the most diverse groups of people in the world. Because they've had so much immigration from all over the place. And so stereotyping people from the United States is a ridiculous joke. Anything you say about them is false. And it's just as dumb as like insulting all Europeans. Europeans are very different from each other. We're all Asians. Like some people try and say, oh, Asians are like that. And it's like, fuck, do you have any fucking idea how complex Asia is? I mean, Asia's got all kinds of people. And they got all kinds of different histories, and their languages are not all the same, and it's complex. So don't do it. And I would love this place to be a bubble of freedom where people can culturally interact and, we can have a good time and not be trapped in your little bigoted bubble of fucked up judgment. Or mine. I have a few myself. Actually, my judgments, of course. My bigotry is correct and everything, not yours. You're just a bigot. Look at this. This is going to make some dogs happy. Here we go. Some dogs are just assholes. They should just share the food. I actually need 2 food boxes because sometimes there's a dominance hierarchy in who gets to eat first. Normally it's this one right here who gets to eat first. Hi, honey. But right now he doesn't care. Goodbye. Good luck learning English. Maybe I'll see you someday. Probably I never will. It's probably a good thing. Goodbye.